Hi there, you're listening to Legal Marketing Minutes. I'm your host, Nancy Myrland. I wanted to talk to you about, there's so much to talk to you about regarding what firms should be doing with this coronavirus, COVID-19 outbreak, pandemic, whatever we want to call it. And the first is let's think about how this is going to impact law firms in the legal profession. You might be wondering what to do next. And so let's talk about that for a little bit. I mean, as of, a few weeks ago, we had a few partners at a few law firms around the country infected, also, testing positive, I should say. And Lawrence Garbuz, and I'm probably mispronouncing Lawrence's name, with Lewis and Garbuz in New York had tested positive, and his wife, who is also his co-partner, had tested positive, and another neighbor as well. So they had been quarantined and they're working remotely. And then a Quinn Emanuel partner has also tested positive, and they were one of the early firms to close their New York office that week that he had tested positive, which I think was 2 weeks ago, and sent all their lawyers and staff home and told them to start working remotely. One of the stories that makes me the most sad is about David Latt. And if you don't know David, I'm not friends with him or anything, I just know of him. A lot of people know of him. He's the founder of the Above the Law blog, and he's 44 years old. I saw that he posted on Twitter a handful of days ago or so saying that he had tested positive. He was in the hospital. He was on oxygen. He posted a picture of himself and said, "You guys, this is real. You need to take it seriously," and on and on. Well, what's happened now is that he's on a ventilator. His oxygen levels have dropped, and he's just not in very, very good shape, and we are all worried about him. So before I go on, my thoughts and prayers and my heart go out to every single lawyer, business professional, anybody in law firms and anywhere else who have been impacted by this absolutely horrible virus. So again, let's talk about what law firms should be doing, and if you're wondering what to do next. Well, let's just have a conversation about that. And as I see it, you have two choices. When a situation like the coronavirus are looming, you have to ask yourself two questions. And the first is, number one, should you plan for an upheaval in your and your clients' businesses? The second choice that you have is, should you sit back and wait for it to pass? Well, it might be easier to decide whether to follow that first choice or that second choice if you ask yourself these two very simple but really critical questions. And the first is, what is the worst possible thing that can happen if I choose number one, which is the planning part? What is the worst possible thing that can happen if I choose number two, which is to sit back and wait for it to pass? And the other question is, what are the advantages of choosing number one, being a planner? What are the advantages of choosing number two, sitting back and waiting? And I think when enough time has passed now that I think our answers are becoming much clearer and much easier, that we don't have any choice but to plan, because this is all getting a little bit out of control and the numbers are growing and it's scaring a lot of people. So I always advise my clients that proactively getting out in front of a situation by planning ahead for a potential crisis is the absolute best approach. Many of you are already in the throes of doing that. So you've been proactive, or as proactive as you can be, knowing when we all found out about this. So you know what? At the very best, things are going to pass, and you won't need the solutions and the messages that you develop if you plan for a crisis that's going to go on for a while. No harm done, right? And at the very worst, among other things, you're one of these things. You're caught off guard with staff, clients, and media not knowing which direction to turn. You're unsure how to continue business as usual and keep on being profitable or productive. You might be unprepared to help minimize health risks. That's one of the worst things that could happen. And then you might be confronted with inadequate resources that can help your lawyers, your business professionals, and your clients understand how to deal with all of these things, the anxiety, the fear, and the panic that they might be experiencing now that this is taking on really a life of its own. Well, let me help you by providing a starting point point that you and your firm should think about so that you are better prepared going forward, because this has already begun and it is a global, you know this, it's a pandemic, it's global, it's not going away in the very, very near future. We don't have a vaccine yet. Those things are changing by the minute. So, by the time you listen to this in a few hours or even in a day or whenever you catch this, that might be different. I hope that's the case. Well, let's talk about crisis communications and the best place to start with crisis communications, and that's with scenario planning. And when you talk about crisis communications, I would start that absolutely now, before this crisis hits your firm in a major way. And, once these kits really get out in the public and they reach the people in your firm, you might find you already have the virus at your firm. And in my next episode, I'm going to talk to you about what to do when you find out that someone at your firm or who has visited your firm has tested positive. So we'll deal with that in the next episode. So scenario planning is always the best precursor to effective community and public relations and dealing with a crisis. And here are some steps for you to follow. Create a list of all of the what if scenarios. Talk about who are all the parties that we need to be worried about. I mean, everybody. It's not just your lawyers, it's your business professionals, it's your service providers. There are so many people. What if one of your lawyers tests positive? What if one of your business professionals tests positive? What if somebody in one of your global offices in a country that has been hit particularly hard tests positive? And again, service providers, people who deliver things to you. What if one of those people tests positive? What if one of your clients tests positive? What if one of your infected lawyers gives the virus to someone else before, or gave it to someone else before they were tested? What if someone in the firm just feels like he or she has symptoms? What if any of your people are so concerned that they want to begin working remotely if you haven't already sent them home to work from home? And there are so many what ifs. So I want you to sit down, stand up, whatever. Create all of those what if scenarios. And then what I want you to do is keep everybody in the loop. I would message everybody in your firm to let them know that this is the kind of planning and conversation that you're having because, and I want you to tell them this, that their health is your number one priority. I would also consider including media in your markets in those conversations because it's always best to be open and honest and inclusive of them. I mean, these are the times when those relationships become even more critical. So what I want you to do is, here are the things that you can communicate. Invite everyone in your firm to respond or come talk to you or anyone else in a position of authority if they have concerns or suggestions. And this even goes after they're working from home. And again, I know that many of you are already doing that. Create channels to facilitate rapid and easy exchange of conversations like these. Whether that's a Slack channel, whether that's messaging you privately or texting you, invite them to do that. I'd also take into consideration that there's a lot of fear out there. So you might also think about making counselors available virtually if people are particularly vulnerable right now and if they're afraid. And then what is part of this scenario planning that I'm discussing, I would make sure you add external communication to your list of responsibilities. If you don't, someone else might stand up and tell your story, which you never want to have happen. So you know what? Again, there is just no blueprint for this. Nothing is normal. Nothing is tried and true. There's no black and white blueprint. So furthering the discussion is critical. And the most important message I want you to glean from this is to start now. Don't wait. I think you'll find that you're much better prepared for what comes your way, both now with this unpredictable coronavirus and also for every other crisis that comes around in your firm's future. Well, just let me know if you have any questions. I will turn this podcast into a blog post at my blog, which is at myrlandmarketing.com. And that's MYRLAND marketing.com. Well, thank you so much for spending a few moments with me. I want you to stay safe, stay healthy, heed all the warnings, be good citizens, practice physical isolation. You can still be social. We can actually get online if you want to do that, if that helps. All right, we'll talk to you next time. Thank you so much. Take care.